good evening and welcome to this Saturday evening lecture at the University of Dundee and to tonight's lecture by Fiona, who's here to talk to you. And we're very delighted and a bit surprised that so many of you come out and braved the weather to be here, to this lovely spring weather. So well done for that. So just a little bit about Fiona's background. I'm sure you might know some of it. Fiona was brought up in a farmhouse just outside Edinburgh, which was at one time, coincidentally, owned by the Knights Templar, which she says in her book was one of the many amazing coincidences which marked her quest in writing this book. And I think you'll agree that Fiona has written an intriguing, and I'm sure she would agree, to some extent, and a contentious book. Her background was in nursing, and she then moved into advertising and marketing and became a campaigner on the environment, on the environment and animal welfare, which led her to investigative research, writing and reporting, which I'm sure provided excellent background for this book and experience. After a spell in France, she moved back to Scotland in 2000 and set up her own business, selling wooden toys and games, which she sourced when she was in France. Fiona did, she says in the book, think the book would take her a year to write, but actually I think it took her more in the region of 7 years. And it has produced much debate. So this will be interesting tonight to hear a bit more about it, because Fiona said recently on Twitter that she would be revealing new evidence tonight. So I will pass you now on to Fiona and her lecture on Da Vinci's Last Commission.
Hello, thank you very much for coming out. And it's bitter. So if I'm like this, it's not because I'm nervous, I'm freezing. Would I be able to have a glass of water just so that... This is a thrilling story, which has been a literary pilgrimage for me. It's about censored history over 2,000 years, which has never been able to be really spoken about because it's heretical. So it's been passed on through communication, through symbolism, through pictures, through architecture, through games, through dance, through song. It's all to do with, and forgive me because this is a first for me, so I might make, it's all about this beautiful picture. My father was a general practitioner. He was a lovely man. He interrupted his studies at Edinburgh University to be a medical student, to be a doctor, because of the war. At the end of the war, he had to start all over again. We lived in Swanston, just outside Edinburgh. Poor man had to start again. He then had a practice down in England. It's the only place he could actually find a practice. He had four children, and the practice was in the house. Now, it was a different time then. It was a family house, smells of cooking, children playing, me fighting with my brothers, dogs, hens. Patients would come into our house 9 till 10 every morning, 6 until 7 in the evening. He worked constantly with only every other weekend off. So they knew us intimately. I mean, you can imagine. I used to go in and get cards and things, but they'd see me as an Indian one day, a cowboy the next. And they used to give him gifts to thank him. He loved art. They knew he loved art. I can remember gifts that he was given, a vase, a clock, various other things. But this particular day, my father came back from his afternoon rounds, and I was in the sitting room with my mother. And he was a lovely, quiet man. He was a very, typically Scot. And he brought in this beautiful painting in a frame, which I'm afraid I restored very badly, and she isn't in it any longer, and put it on the sofa and said to my mother, look at this. And then the reason why it imprinted itself, I was most probably about 7, and this was over 50 years ago, end of 50s, 1950s, early 60s. He included me in it and said, Fifi, come and have a look. She's absolutely beautiful. And his beautiful hand held mine. And so I was brought into the trio and this incredible event. Then he said, okay, fine. It didn't only come alone. I'll go back out, and he went to the car and brought back this cardboard box, which was full of other artifacts. Now, the person that gave this was a patient of my father's, and my mother's now 93 and still lives with me. She can't remember whether it was a gift from a living man or whether it was a bequest from a man that had been a patient and it was part of the will. There's no way we have of knowing that. And the other bits, the reason why it carried on imprinting itself, because not only did I involve myself in this, but we then went through this box. It was almost like a Christmas day because there was a map, there was an engraving, there was a quaich, there was a folder like, I don't know whether people in the audience will remember, but you used to put in the Radio Times in a leather folder. And there was a beautiful map which I hid right the way through the years until 10 years ago in different maps, in different books, because it meant something to me. It's a treasure map. I even knew it as a little girl. Anyhow, my dear, lovely father, the house that this was in was pulled down because of dry rot. And she went into another house. And I'm afraid to say, here, you'll see paint. This is me when I emulsioned the landing. And I didn't cover her, and it's spray from the roller. So as I went, come off in restoration. And I didn't paint underneath, so there was just a blank where she was. Anyhow, she then went back onto the landing so the whole family could see her. My brothers, by this stage, were going into medical school and qualifying as doctors, emigrated. It was me, I then went into nursing. My father died in 1979, and it was me and my mother, 3 brothers, 2 in America, 1 in Canada. She was only 59. It was a terrible episode in her life, as you can imagine. And so we decided to move back up to Scotland. And we had a restaurant. She came with us. Everything came with us. Sackloads. And we've had our lives together ever since. Then in 1990, turning points in my life, I went to France, and my mother came too. France is very important in this, because if I hadn't lived in France for 9 years, I wouldn't know about the Cathars, and I wouldn't know about the law of Mary Magdalene. In France, I learned the whole initiation about these wonderful sect of people that I don't know whether you know about, but they were the victims of the first genocide when the Roman Catholic Church deemed them heretics, purely because they were Gnostics, they were called the pure ones, they were vegetarians, they believed in chastity, but in the concept of this, because you'll get much more in the book, they believed in the fact that Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ were married and that they had children. I heard all this in France. I didn't particularly take it as kind of significant, didn't go, oh gosh, I didn't know that, you know, how extraordinary. I also found, of course, the story of Mary Magdalene having arrived in Marseille after Christ's Passion as part of the Judean diaspora as they fled and went on to the continent. And this is very well recorded in Roman Catholic literature right the way through, so it's really indisputable, and I've got a quote I'd like to read to you later about that. So I knew all that, it was imbued in me, but didn't take it particularly. It's not as though I suddenly turned in my kind of philosophical thought. I almost took it a little bit like we do about Scotland, of Pontius Pilate in Forteviot, or the 12 tribes of Israel, you know, kind of, oh yes, really, you know, easy to dismiss. I'm not kind of being hooked in on this. After 8 exquisite years in France, I love the French, love the passion, love the intellect, love the everything. Scotland's my husband, France is my lover, metaphorically speaking. I came back in the beginning of 2000, and I brought back from France a little taste of France by having a toy shop that only had French toys, German toys, Italian toys. And it went very well in a tiny little village in Comrie where I had a restaurant. I've done loads of things in life, nothing wrong with that. It seasons you and kind of follow your dream. Did well for 6 years, then it started to ebb. And a friend of mine brought in a book, which you've most probably heard of, called Holy Blood, Holy Grail, by Michael Bage and Henry Lincoln. Now, any of you that dissent from what I'm saying to you tonight, I absolutely understand. Because in 1985, when that book was written, I was given it, and I read it, and I went, this is blasphemy. This is sacrilegious. How dare they write such a thing? And I didn't pursue it any further, because every time has its season. My season wasn't then. I had to experience things in order to come back. Michael Bagent and Henry Lincoln, it's important to also know, are Freemasons, leading Freemasons. They've been part of this language of symbolism that's kept intact a history that, as I say, has been heavily censored. So, so as I say, everything came together, and they actually do have a story together, because the pictures that came with her are part of their journeyman. And as you'll see later, that they're all combined to be taken in combination and not in their own single way. Okay, as to this beautiful picture, reading the Holy Blood, Holy Grail. They, of course, mention Leonardo da Vinci and the fact that Leonardo da Vinci encoded symbolism in his paintings. They also, of course, mentioned the fleur-de-lis and the fact that 3 fleur-de-lis, the symbol of the French bloodline of Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ. And they mentioned the fact that the Priory of Sion and the guardians of the Grail, Leonardo. And as it was reading all this, the switch went in my head. And I thought, hang on, my painting, my mother had given it to me by that stage as a kind of thank you for being stalwart friends and companion, etc. My painting's old, it's on wood, so it's at the same time, it's got fleur-de-lis. I think I better have a look at the painting again. I looked at the painting again, thought, okay, fine, what am I to do? How am I going to find out about this? Am I absolutely barking mad? And loads of people have thought I am. I have too. I contacted, and this is important, I contacted the world authority on Leonardo da Vinci, Dr. Carlo Pedretti. What a hunch I was following. I just sent him a JPEG from a photograph that I'd taken and said, what do you think of the picture? Do you think it's important? Tell me. I got an email back, and just imagine what this was like as a touchstone in this quest of mine, saying, it's an important picture, it deserves to go to a laboratory to be properly examined, and it's by, I think, a senior pupil of Leonardo da Vinci. What did I have? A painting by a leading pupil of Leonardo da Vinci. Incredibly important, beautiful. Well, I think that's undeniable anyway. There's something on the back, which I'll go to later. He said, if we can by any chance find out what's the back, it's very important. What he didn't realise was how extraordinarily important it is and unprecedented in any picture that has ever gone to auction. Okay, so let's have a look at her, because as soon as I got this email back, vroom, and thank goodness I'm a researcher and done investigative journalism, because I had to read everything about Leonardo, about him, about his life, about what he'd painted, examine pictures, also the other books that are non-fictional and fictional about him, colour in everything, the philosophy of the time. What a delight. I mean, it's been thrilling to be able to enter the world of the art world and look and reflect back to this. So, my lovely Madonna and Child, you're most probably all saying, okay, Madonna and Child, yeah, well, what's St. John the Baptist doing then? Must be the Virgin Mary and Child and John the Baptist, because he's there. John the Baptist is here because he's integral to the philosophy of the Renaissance. You'll see that he's on a separate plane. Kind of seems strange to have a table or something out of kilter with the main body of the picture. He's on it. I thought for a minute he didn't have a foot, but actually he does. The lamb's looking to him, the Agnus Dei lamb, that's normally associated with Jesus Christ. He's pointing to the lamb's looking at him. The Madonna, her eyes aren't focusing on John, nor is the baby, but he's looking adoringly at them. It's a beautiful face of St. John the Baptist. to many, including the Knights Templar, the Masons, many other sects as well, believe St. John Baptist was the sacrificial lamb. And that's why there's a skull that's revered and that's prayed to, and the same with the Knights Templar. He had to be on this for dual purpose, as far as I believe, as the fact that he was revered, and the man that I believe commissioned this painting, who's King Francis I, where Leonardo spent his last 3 years as court painter. If you had Leonardo da Vinci as your court painter for the last years of his life, when the French household had been saying to him for ages, please come to France, please come to France, would you never ask him to paint you a picture? I mean, it's unheard of to think you'd have this man who King Francis said is not only a wonderful artist, a wonderful engineer, a scientist, an inventor, but an amazing, well, musician as well, but an amazing philosopher. You would say to him, can you not encapsulate the philosophy of France, of the bloodline of Mary Magdalene, Jesus Christ, my household in a painting? I would. I mean, so, and he's also put in everything. Important St. John the Baptist, he has to be important in all of this. So if you look at the picture, which is fascinating, Leonardo studied the foot, studied anatomy. As you know, he was a genius. What's very rarely, in fact, I've never heard it mentioned, is the Mortons Toe, which is the second toe, which is extended and longer than the big toe. It's most probably in about 10% of the population anyway. But he used it almost as a game. It's almost a kind, you can see sometimes the second toe is incredibly long, sometimes it's not quite so long. But it's a tray of not just Leonardo, but his school and also of other artists. But it's an important genetic tray, which is worth considering. Oh, that hand, this has been under infrared, which is the new thing. This painting's being examined. And I didn't think it could get more exciting, but the revelations that are coming in now are quite amazing. The underdrawing of this is beautiful, but this hand is a quirky hand. It's a very awkward one to use, but he used it quite often. The flower is a carnation. That's symbolized, as we know, the tears cried at the crucifixion by the Virgin Mary, but in fact it's also known as the flower of betrothal and marriage. That, I think, is what this signifies here. Mary Magdalene, who's been besmirched, and as I say, I strongly believe this to be Mary Magdalene, is known for various things, of being dressed in red. Thomas Aquinas decreed in the 1400s that the Virgin Mary must be portrayed in blue. Mary Magdalene must be portrayed in red. One of the directors at Sotheby's who looked at this painting and said, Magdalene's nudging me, I'm coming on board now, then said, but there are a lot of Madonnas in red. And then he went, well, actually, maybe there are a lot of Mary Magdalenes. Maybe there are a lot of people that are encoding this. Tell you the other fascinating thing that's coming in, because this picture is loaded. Do you see the extraordinary hand? Thumb, finger, and look at that stretch under the arm. To the next finger. It's like that. It's very, very awkward. That gap right under the baby's arm. I thought, has she got 6 fingers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, I've only just discovered, and this is what's so thrilling, and this is also people coming in, because I want you to interact. The beauty is we can all look at pictures, not through the eyes of an expert telling us what we can see, but we can actually say, what can we see? This is known as the triad claw. It's a sign of Mary Magdalene, 432. I've got photos back home of various people doing it. Prince William, who's a Knight of the Garter, was doing it on his belt. Once you see and you kind of start thinking, okay, it's all messaging, it's all Masonic symbolism, passing on to initiates of, I'm one, are you one? Yes, I'm one. I can't wait to kind of go around so that people go, she knows. And actually, since all of this story is about basically 2 bodies of people that have got exquisite truth under their belt, the Masons and the Roman Catholic Church. And they've passed it through in symbolism. So that's why all of these gestures, and since this, they've said, we agree with you, we don't know how you know it. Will you come and be a mason? I didn't even know you could be a woman mason here, but I'm not going to do it yet. Okay, here are the fleur-de-lis. One there, you won't see it that well on this reproduction, but a fleur-de-lis there, a fleur-de-lis there, and a fleur-de-lis there. And in between a palm, which is victory over death. There are very few artists that have ever done a child with 3 fleur-de-lis in the nimbus. It's not a halo. So it's not Christ's halo, it's a nimbus, completely different. That symbolizes the House of France, 3 fleur-de-lis. Then, okay, and I loved this whole thing because it's been 8, 9 years of the picture going, come on, look, why don't you look at this? What are you thinking of this? Now ask me this, now find this. And I did think, gosh, I'm mad. This can't possibly be Leonardo da Vinci. At this particular time, my lovely mother said, you know something? If this is important, do you think the other things in the box are important? So we went and got the box, which still had all the contents, and we looked through it, and the unifying feature, and my mother loved this. I mean, she was mid-80s then, but as Leonard Cohen would say, she's still a kid. The common denominator was a fleur-de-lis. So it's okay, fine. I've got to research everything. These are clues. I've got to see why all this was done. What was this man gifting onto my father for posterity? So then I went back, always going all over the place, being sure, cross-referencing, to have a look at this face. And I don't know why. I had a hunch to do Carlo Pedretti, and I had a hunch to, okay, I think I'll take a tracing. And it was pathetic tracing. It was just one of these window envelopes to start with. And just did the pencil drawing of the face, and I then put it to the face of the beloved disciple at the Last Supper, who they say in Holy Blood, Holy Grail is Mary Magdalene. I thought, well, I wonder if it will match. If Leonardo did that in the Last Supper, would he have used the same model? Matched absolutely. Not only that, and it's another thing people don't mention, this strange V in the hairline. It's very rudimentary, not what you would expect from one of the world's greatest artists. That, look at that light shaking, sorry about that. That actually ties in with what comes later about the engravings, and again the Judean diaspora, because this is the St. John's tonsure, which is seen in the Book of Kells. It's a sharp cut into the hairline. It's another sign of the Sacred Feminine, another sign of Mary Magdalene. It's brilliant. I loved it. Can you imagine, as I was learning the language, could hear it kind of going, yes, you're there, you're there, you're there, and giving me clues. So the profile matches that of the beloved disciple. Not only that, she actually copies the face of the Madonna of the Rocks. Same cut in the hair, exactly the same. Leonardo used to work for templates. So this kind of pyramidal template. She's got a halo, obviously. St. John's cross, his reed cross, that intrigued me because it's going to an undermined tree. Is that the tree of jest, the tree of knowledge? Is it saying to us something that knowledge is being undermined, in peril? Her ear is exposed. That goes from the biblical text of those who have ears to hear, same as when you have eyes to see. Time for every season. It's come to me late, but I'm jolly glad it's happened. Okay, I don't want to miss out anything. Then, this area is very important, actually, because as I say, he was the last 3 years of his life in the court of Francis I in Amboise, northern France. And they were the best of friends. And the fleur-de-lis, sorry, just to kind of catch back on the fleur-de-lis thing, when King Francis I went to Italy, Pope Leo said to Leonardo, will you greet, I want you to make something really special to greet King Francis I. So Leonardo did create something absolutely incredible. He developed a robotic lion. a robotic lion that walked towards King Francis, robot, walked towards King Francis, and then its chest opened out with the lily of France, because Pope Leo wanted the lily of France to represent King Francis and the lion to represent Pope Leo. So it was a well-acknowledged fact about the fleur-de-lis. So back to Amboise, 3 years. I thought, okay, lovely Leonardo. Took various paintings with him, St. John the Baptist, Mona Lisa, St. Anne and the Virgin Child to Amboise. He had a stroke latterly before he died. And I do believe any king would ask their court artist to paint a picture. So I thought, okay, this is unfinished. It's because it was his last commission. He couldn't finish it. He'd had a stroke. It affected his right side, right hemiplegia, but he still had his left hand. He was left-handed, heretical, but left-handed. So I thought he was doing the main bits. It's why there's no fumato, which is typical of Leonardo. The fumato is a thing of people say, it's not Leonardo, it's no fumato. No, it isn't, because you can still see the underdrawing. Fumato is layer on layer to create fumato. And so this area, unfinished. But I'm pointing to this because don't let me forget it, because this is where I thought it was just unfinished. Everybody went, yeah, it's unfinished. It was somebody like you reading the book, looking, who then contacted me and said, I don't want to trivialize your book, but have you seen something? And I'll come back to what he'd seen, and I thought he was the first of the nutcases to roll in. And please forgive me, because he opened a door to me that's been stunning. Then looking at this picture again, I went, okay, fine. If I can find the location of that, wouldn't that be brilliant? We know Mary Magdalene landed in Marseille. We know she preached in Provence. The whole law, they celebrate every year Mary Magdalene in France. Oh, where's that? Again, I lived in France. I knew Aix-en-Provence. Another hunch, and so simple. Tourist board in Aix. Does this mountain strike you as anything? I then got a letter back from the director of the Cézanne Museum in Aix. Cézanne painted Mont Saint-Victoire 150 times. He came back and went, yeah, I can tell you exactly where it is. It's Mont Saint-Victoire. And there's Aix in the foothills. It was one of the most sublime moments for me, because the Virgin Mary wasn't in Aix. Mary Magdalene was. Fleur-de-lis, it was all coming together. Okay, I think... Okay. Now, this is the Madonna of the Rocks that I said her profile matches the one in mine. The babies, the boys, are very similar too. Bear with me on this. You might well be going, well, I don't think they are. Well, same V, same profile, and I'll prove it to you later. And the rocks that they kind of dismiss are kind of strange. Somebody, and again, it was a reader came in and said, do you think there could be standing stones or something in this? Because there's a diaspora here, a diaspora of the Judean refugees fleeing the Romans. And this is the Last Supper, and of course the beloved disciple that I believe is Mary Magdalene, and most people do, but a lot of experts say, no, that's ridiculous. Well, quite extraordinary that her profile absolutely matches the Madonna of the Rocks and my picture. So I think it's pretty clear. The other thing about this, and again, it's when you get eyes to see, where's the chalice on this? Basic tenet of the whole point of the Last Supper. So we all just say, well, it isn't there, it must be a reason. Actually, it is there. It's there. I don't know how I ever missed it. Now whenever I look at it, I go, of course it's there. The pillar represents Mary Magdalene, it's a tower. It's why the Chaldees in Scotland have towers. It's another symbolism. There's somebody else, and it wasn't me, that says these low bits of bread actually make a musical score. And I don't know how up to speed you are with Bagent and everything else, but this makes the M of Magdalene. But that wasn't really my bat on that. I was just looking for other things. If you think, well, who is this woman? She knows nothing. She was a nurse. She didn't do anything. She's not an art expert. She hasn't studied art. I've done the last 8 years. You know, why should we listen to her? Well, I've always thought this portrait of the musician was fascinating. But I always thought, I wonder what it says. What's the music? Leonardo composed 18 pieces of music. He sang exquisitely. He made his own lutes. He was fabulous. So would he just have done a doodle at the bottom? No expert has actually said what that musical score is. There's a man called Stuart Mitchell who decoded the stones at Roslin Chapel and found that they actually formed a musical score. He's an incredibly talented man, and he's an exceptional composer. Beautiful compositions. I mean, if you ever have the opportunity, which you should, Stuart Mitchell in Edinburgh, contemporary composer. I sent it to him and said, Stuart, can you help me? What do you think about this? Can we find out what's the score on this piece of music? Won't surprise you. Leonardo wrote in mirror writing. Stuart, having imagination, because logic will take you to A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere, put this piece, put this music to a mirror. That piece of music is the hymn to St. John. It was a piece of music that was banned by the church because it was deemed heretical, because it's got what's called the tritone, the devil's chord. It takes you to another level of the sublime. The Miserere that Mozart composed from heart, contains the same. So that's what he put in, but it took a woman, just a woman, researching a book with eyes to see, to find out. I think that's fabulous. Now Stuart's actually composed a piece of music from this, and I think he's thinking of doing something with it later, and actually, so we'll hear this piece of music for the very first time. I mean, that's all the doors, the bolts are being pulled back, and we can kind of go in. For the first time, we can talk about these things. I'm deemed heretical for doing this now, but I can at least say to you, this is what I'm finding out. Let's talk, let's question, let's shake the truth out of things. The other thing, St. John the Baptist. Leonardo took this with him to Amboise, and it was in his room. It was incredibly important to him. A lot of the books, and it's still an ongoing thing, that people have said it's his gay lover. It's, you know, blah, 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 blah. If you halve the face, I don't know if you can see anything. I don't know if you have any comments about this, but I think there's a lot going on there. And it struck me suddenly, because now I was kind of speaking the language and understanding the man, this beautiful man, more and more. And I've had a lovely discussion of this on Facebook, because I've put these pictures up to invite people to come in and give their own comments of what can you see, so we can all debate it. And it's half the face is male, that side. Half the face is female. It's actually encapsulating a philosophy of androgyny, where it's a point that the two make the one, male, feminine, in equal balance. Those are the faces split. So once you start delving in and kind of finding things, and we've had a composite of the faces too. It's not, you know, my right side's better than my left side. When you put them together, it's indisputable. Okay. Now, you'll remember Professor Carlo Pedretti said, if we can find out what's on the back, it could be really important. Oh, boy. I always thought this was just a random... Somebody even said, I'm not really interested in a painting with lots of bits of newspaper stuck at the back. This is anything but a piece of newspaper stuck at the back. I thought it was an estate agent travelling warrant. I didn't know anything about papal history or anything like that. And I have to thank Sotheby's, because Sotheby's came in to have a look at the painting, and have been of tremendous support and, well, wouldn't be, about this. There are wayfaring tickets, but this has been authenticated by the Vatican. It's on vellum, authenticated by the Vatican, the secret archives at the Vatican, I may add, that this is a papal bull issued by Pope Paul V in the early 1600s. Now, he was the Pope that was notoriously responsible for setting up the Vatican secret archives. He's the man that set about Galileo and said, oh, no, 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 the sun revolves around the earth, not the other way round, shut up. And he was the man that was implicated in the gunpowder plot to blow up, well, gunpowder plot. So, this is a papal bull issued by the 1600s which proves that Pope Paul V owned this picture. It is unprecedented. There's never been a picture gone to auction with a papal bull of this caliber on the back of it. Well, any papal bull. This is fascinating. This is an impreza of the notaire's office that issued the bull for Pope Paul V. It's vitally important. Secret archives, I went to and said, what do you think about this impreza? I've had all the papal authorities in the UK and in America, everywhere. What's this impreza? What's it telling us? Is it the secret archives? What's the code? The Vatican secret archives acknowledged that, in fact, it is the secret archives, and they said, and this is classic, they said, the person that would be able to tell us what this is died a few years ago. I've got it in the, correspondent died a few years ago, so I'm afraid we can't help you. The Holy See in Dublin were looking at it, and then I said, would you agree that it's from the secret archives? No response, no response, no response. And I said, shall I take it if there's no response, that you'll agree that it's from the secret archives? No response. Heretical painting of Mary Magdalene with child. Secret archives, Pope Paul V. Whisked away. Napoleon ransacked the Vatican secret archives in 1810 and took a whole load of booty with him back to France. He did it because he believed in the Merovingian line, which is the line of the bloodline from Mary Magdalene, and the fact that it was passed on. This is oceans deep, by the way, now. It's not a case that Christ had a child with Mary Magdalene and it's the elite. It covers the whole globe, all over the globe. So it's not the fact that it's kings, queens that have it. It's everybody. It's us in the audience, everybody. Okay, that takes us on. Well, I'll just tell you, this is going through infrared at the moment. X-rays, various examinations, because I'm going through the hoops, because I want to sell this painting, because I want it to be dedicated to his mother, Katerina, and to set up the Katerina Peace Foundation. So when this goes to auction, it will do that, and I'll tell you more about that later. Before I leave her, I told you about this space here, and just bear it in mind. This reader contacted me on my website just before the book was published in August and said, I think your book's wonderful. I don't want to trivialize it, but can you see a face in this section of the painting? And I thought, well, this is mad. If you look, can you see a face? There's a face on the... He gave me the directions and everything else. From the ear, you get the eyes, you get the nose, you get the mouth, you get the beard, you get the hair. It's like a negative that's coming out. For over 50 years, I've looked at this picture and I've never seen the face. It matches the canon of proportions, which is how Leonardo worked as far as anatomy went, with his own self-portrait. The painting's been for infrared, that face is still there. It's not varnish, it's not faces in the clouds. He has painted himself in, and once you do focus, and again, come on my website, have a look at the book, Da Vinci's Last Commission, and you'll see the face. There are other things that have been found on this painting too. If you think this is his last picture, he's going to put everything into this picture. You know, he's dying, he's going to put all the philosophies, but not only that, he's going to ally himself with the philosophy by saying, I agree with it. Okay, so Mary Magdalene, Marseille, the diaspora of the Judeans, Mary with a child. She looks very concerned in that painting. She should be, she's worried. She's still on Roman territory. The way I found out about this, and I am ashamed as a Scot, and the reason why I didn't sell the picture and keep stum, because I'm standing in oncoming traffic with people going, oh, she's nuts, what's she saying, heretic, terrible, is the fact that this story of the Chaldees is a story that we must rewrite history in truth. I've always loved this picture because as a little girl you can imagine I would. Funny old man, skull, it's all a bit creepy as a kind of 8-year-old. But thanks to my mother, and let's look at everything else in the box, there are 3 fleurs-de-lis in the plaque of this monastery. His tonsure isn't a normal one. It's normally a patrine for the crown of thorns. This actually is the tonsure of St. John. It's linked to the Druids. This is when it gets really exciting. We're zooming back 2,000 years into history that's been kept from us, but which is recorded. I'm not making this up. It's historical fact, what I'm telling you. There are various things here of the Egyptian temple. It's a lovely book page to kind of go in and explore of the ladder and everything else. And I'm not going to, well, no, not looking at the clock anyway, go into it now. But there's a full section. This man is a Chaldee monk. Now, every Scot in this audience, the Chaldees founded St. Andrews. They founded all our major towns. They were the Judean refugees, and it's in history books. They landed in England in 36 AD. It's a matter of historical record. Judean diaspora landed on British soil 36 AD, and they would do. Joseph of Arimathea, who was part of that diaspora, used to trade in the UK, Cornish tin. He knew the Druids. He knew he could get away from the Romans by coming to Britain and save the line of David. It really is amazing. When I hear people say, well, the Romans did this and the Romans, and thank goodness for the Romans. In 44 AD, the Romans invaded this land. But over 2,000 years ago, and please let's reinstate the proud heritage of the Druids, there were 60 universities through the UK, 60 universities, 60,000 students 2,000 years ago. Rome, Greek, sent their students here to be taught the great mysteries, philosophy, astronomy, arts, everything. And we go, oh, the Romans. We shouldn't laud the Romans. They came out to destroy a proud heritage. And again, it's recorded when Claudius said it, and to go for our enemies, anyone from the line of David, destroy. So the Chaldees, no, we won't get to you yet, Louis. The Chaldees migrate north. The Romans never went to Ireland. The Chaldees were safe there. The Romans only got up to Perthshire, and the Chaldees migrated further and further north to Iona, where the Book of Kells was written, by the way. I didn't know anything about the Book of Kells either. Our history by the Chaldees, which again encapsulate in beautiful symbolism the truth, because that's the only way to encode it. And when they say St. Columba arrived and brought Christianity, that's rubbish. The Druids and the Chaldees were already there, and at least St. Columba said, Jesus was my Druid. There's a bit that I want to... May I read out to you a bit? When St. Augustine came over in the 500s to bring Christianity, he reported back. He wasn't bringing Christianity, by the way. He was bringing papacy. He reported back in the western confines of Britain, and St. Augustine wasn't that great. He was a serial... he loved sex, and he kept on saying, I'll stop, but not yet. So he wrote, in the western confines of Britain, there is a certain royal island of large extent, this is Glastonbury, Avalon, surrounded by water. In it, the first neophytes of the Catholic law, God acquainting them, found a church constructed by no human art, but divinely constructed or by the hands of Christ himself. So he reported back, there are already the Christian faith on that island. I don't need to take it there, it's there. Record. And again, back to symbolism, and it's the only way we can talk. Sign language for the deaf, sign language is the most wonderful thing that's been going on through millennia and will continue to do so. And it's done in dance and in cards and fiction. Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code, King Arthur, it's all the way that they transmitted this story in fiction, because it's only now, really, that you can come out and say, okay, fact, fact. This guy, lovely King Louis XIV. But again, as a little girl, he fascinated me because I thought he looked a sissy. Absolutely swamped by the fleur-de-lis everywhere. I won't go onto it because this is the greatest testimony to Freemasonry and the fact he was a Mason. They're all symbols of his Masonic connections. He's bragging. Dear old Sun King. His lovers he all called Magdalene. He had a picture of Mary Magdalene in his bedroom. They revered her. The cult of Mary Magdalene has been alive and strong for 2 millennia. It's about time we got on board and just realized the beauty of all these things. Why wouldn't Christ? Even Peter said, Christ, why do you love her more than us? Why do you kiss her? You know, Mary Magdalene was the person that first witnessed the resurrection. Mary Magdalene preached, and I want to read you what a Catholic Cistercian monk said about that. This is fabulous. Louis XIV, I love this map. I've folded it and hidden it in books all my life, then got scared because I couldn't find it. Part of the booty that came with the picture, and again, fleur-de-lis, it's in the key. This map is one of 4. I've got one, the Bibliothèque Nationale's got one, the British Museum's got one, and in Aix there's one from the Enville collection, who's a tremendous cartographer and who collected the best specimens of map making. Nobody could help me with this. Nobody said, oh, I don't know, hadn't a clue. I went all over the world to try and find out who Père Chevalier de Soissons was and what this map was all about. It was a lovely woman in America who eventually came back and said, oh, Père, well, that P stands for father. He was an abbot. He was part of the Bourbon family, so related to King Louis XIV, but not the court cartographer. Louis XIV asked a blood relation, abbot, to do a map for him and to have the key of fleur-de-lis for certain things and various other things. And it was for his financial director down in Marseille. I looked at it and thought, well, this is all very odd because Aix is over there, but Aix isn't over there. Aix is north. This is a Grail map, however you want to define a Grail map. For starters, Louis needed money. He'd gone through an awful lot of money, wars and navy and everything, but also the Knights Templar were stationed in Marseille. So he wanted his financial director to go and have a good old look all around. We need to have a really good look. I need your help on this. I found various things. I found 4 fleur-de-lis. I found names. I found boundary marks with Knights Templar things. But this is important. Whether they found it, I hope there's some kind of gospel like the Dead Sea Scrolls or something in the caves, because this was the area of the diaspora when they arrived. And again, just to re-emphasize, when they did arrive, Mary Magdalene's brother carried on to be bishop in Marseille. Her sister, you know, talk about priests in the Catholic faith and that we shouldn't have that kind of power. She went north and preached. Mary preached so eloquently, and I hope I have time to read it out to you. So this is oriented, again, Masonic in orientation, and again, all the symbolism of scalloped shells and everything at the top. I'm going to scoot on because there's... now don't get phased out by this, all right? I don't want you going, oh gosh, now it's aliens. She's going to go and talk about aliens. I'm not going to talk about aliens. I'm going to talk about mirror imaging, because we've done the mirror writing, the mirror deciphering of the musical score. And this is why I'm glad I've had the grace and the blessing to be part of this. I think I'll do a mirror image of the Madonna of the Rocks and see what she looks like. Because if you remember, I say that they're the same woman, same profiles. So this is her mirror image. He was a genius. He wasn't just painting pictures, he was encoding lots and lots of things. But skip all that. You explore, take your time in thinking of all these different things. The point of this isn't that, it's the fact of the profiles and how the mirror images match. I said also the beloved disciple at the Last Supper. Again, it's the same kind of alien feature. This is taken from a kind of copy of it, so it's not quite so. But look at Peter's hands over her throat. It's a real kind of. And then, okay, mirror image of my painting. Is it going to happen? Is it going to look the same, or am I going to be completely blown away and find that it's nothing like it? And believe me, I've done it with all the Madonnas, I've done it with the pupils of and everything else to my painting. It's exactly the same as the Madonna of the Rocks. It's exactly the same to a millimetre. To the horns here, the geometry of the reed cross, everything. And all this, I tell you, we're having fun decoding symbolism and Kabbalah and various other things that's been encoded into mirror imaging, which has never been done before. It's indisputable. What a genius to think while he was painting, he was having all these other dimensions of what he was trying to encode to pass on to each other. This is the Book of Kells. And I do really resent the fact that we've not been told things, that we haven't been able to really enjoy our history and delve and be part of it. I've always been a very spiritual woman. I come from a very Christian, and I still am very Christian. But I wish we'd been told all the colour of this life, the courage, what happened on our island. Why do we not laud? In France, they have the roots of the Qatar so that people can reinvigorate, participate and be part of it. We do nothing about the Chaldees. Go to the theologians in St. Andrews, can you tell me about the Chaldees? No, not really. I mean, you don't know about the Chaldees? The Chaldees must be reinstated, together with the fact that they were on overlaying with the Druids. Please take responsibility and don't trust me, research, do as anybody would do. Now we don't need to be spoon-fed about what to believe. Let's find out for ourselves and acquire what we should believe. And this Book of Kells is supposed to be, is the work of angels. There's work done in that you couldn't do with the strongest magnifying glass, but it's there, and it's full of symbolism. It's in Dublin. It shouldn't be in Dublin. Should be in Edinburgh, but it doesn't matter. I don't mind. At least it's somewhere. But they only turn it one page at a time, but it's full of symbolism, and it's also, they've even said that the monks in it are the descendants of Christ, and there we go back to the Merovingian line. And you can't see it on there, but you'll see the sharp cut into the hairline. And there's Leonardo, and that face, the canon of proportions, somebody did this in America. Aren't I lucky? The treasure trail of kind of, okay, I'll go here, I'll go there, what's this coming back? Matches that image, that negative in the painting. This is King Francis I, Leonardo dying. Would he never have asked Leonardo to paint him a picture? I'm so close. I'll never be able to, unless he's put a fingerprint in there for me to find, which he may have done, he has done it, unless I can prove by x-rays and various other things that are happening that he's got a left-handed stroke. There's no way you'd have Leonardo da Vinci in your court and not get him to paint you. Interestingly again, King Francis I, there are portraits of him with this hand movement, the triad claw. And interestingly as well, he built Chambord, which was a place he never stayed for more than 90 days in the whole of his life, but which is encoded with such incredible symbolism. and which he got Leonardo to do the architectural drawing for the DNA helix stairway up through it. So there's loads. It's same in Roslin. I mean, I haven't covered everything, and I'm sorry, but there's Roslin, there's Wren's, there's all of these. Every single thing I've explored has underscored the main thesis of this painting. Without all these other bits of the puzzle that this man left my father, I wouldn't know it. And the last thing, because I can see the time zooming on, in the folder that I said was like the leather folder you put the Radio Times in, I opened it, there was fleur-de-lis right at the front, so we went another fleur-de-lis. And then like a kid again, I thought, well, what's in the folder? And kind of went in the pockets and there was nothing. Until I felt something and pulled it out. And again, as Scots, it was a stamp commemorating the Declaration of Arbroath, 1320, 6th of April. Actually celebrated every 6th of April as Tartan Day in America. They actually set the template of the Declaration of Independence on the Declaration of Arbroath, was this stamp. And it meant my father knew because he'd hid it in the folder. It was 1971 that stamp had come. So my father knew some of the pieces. Read the Declaration of Arbroath. It's the most astonishing blackmail letter that's ever been written to a pope. Again, the quaich, part of our heritage. We've all been told, okay, quaich Scottish. No, it isn't. It's from a scallop shell. It's a loving cup. It's a Masonic symbol. To talk about the Grail again, and I bet you're all going to read the book to find out exactly why. This is a quaich from France. It's Louis XIV and Louis XVI. But the quaich that we had the fleur-de-lis in it. But it's another way of symbolizing the Grail. And I think, I should shut up now. Just to finish, I won't read it. Read the book, but there is well catalogued, everything that I've said. I haven't made one leap that hasn't been backed by historic record. The Chaldees arriving, the Judean diaspora, got given 1,920 acres. It's in the Doomsday Book. It's recorded. It's history. It's just nobody's been bothered to go back because you go and you get told something and you take it. I've been given the wonderful gift, the gift of a lifetime, to be able to dig back and go, I didn't know. And there's loads more I don't know. And what a journey for the rest of my life. This painting will go to auction at the end of this year or the beginning of next. I've been the custodian of this picture. Never once has my mother and I ever said, God, we got a Leonardo, woo! This painting will go to auction, and as I said earlier, the funds will start the Katerina Peace Foundation, dedicated to his mother, a 16-year-old who gave birth to him, and then he was taken away from her. She was only 16. This foundation, it's the whole reason for this. Will be there to look after children in care as surrogate parents right the way through children in care, right the way through adulthood. We'll be putting money into grants, business plans. It's an amazing concept. It's all being put into place now. So when the picture's sold, that's where it goes. And that's the most beautiful thing of this, because out of this exquisite story I've been told and gifted with, there'll be this foundation that will be groundbreaking. And again, come onto my website and come on board as far as that goes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. That was a really interesting talk. I'm sure there are lots of questions. I think we have about 10 minutes, but after the lecture, Fiona will be signing books downstairs, so there's another chance
so we can have
a chat with her.
Only if you buy the book, mind you.
There are microphones. If you want to ask a question, could you wait until the microphone comes?
Thank you.
Microphones, don't worry, I don't need it. There are three ladies, I really enjoyed it.
Could you use the microphone, please, because people in the back can't hear.
Okay, thank you. There are three ladies I wonder if you have interfaced with. And one is Patrice Chaplin,
No.
City of Secrets. I think you should read her work.
Right.
I think you should meet her. Amazing correlations. Comparabilities are spooky. And the next one is Kathleen McGowan,
Oh, I know Kathleen.
the expected
Or
one.
Kathleen.
There's a lot
most
of
probably know.
powerful information there. And of course, the other one, I forget the name of the lady who wrote it, is the lady with the alabaster jar.
Oh, well, yes.
Yeah.
Margaret Starbird.
Starbird, that's it.
She and I have been in communication right the way through all of this. She had the courage, because as a staunch Roman Catholic, she suddenly had her blinkers fall and went, no, they were married.
Incredibly.
Yeah, it
No.
is. And it takes courage standing oncoming traffic, and particularly for a staunch Roman Catholic to do so.
Absolutely. I think there's another one, and it's amazing. I'm making some notes that you mentioned the Declaration of Arbroath.
Oh,
The Declaration of Arbroath opens with "We the Scythians," but the correct research of that displays "We the Scythians."
yes.
Please, tonight, when you get time tomorrow, go into Amazon and just put in "We the Scythians."
Okay.
And a book came on sale yesterday. It's very expensive. It's £78. And it is Egypt, the Lie of the Land, L-I-E, We the Scythians. You must get that book. It involves Edinburgh. Because what you're talking about is one of the great lies.
Yes,
There's a
yes.
parallel lie. Commons Bowman talked about it, and everyone deriled him really many years ago. But the truth came out yesterday it came out on the 12th of the 12th last year when that book was announced. You've got to read it.
Yeah,
I'll do an email to you and give you
Yes,
some
I was
details.
going to say,
Thank
if
you
you
very much.
could-
We must move on now. Any more questions?
And
Thank
anybody,
you for
please
that.
contact me through the website and my Facebook page. The whole beauty of this, I want communication, you know.
No, up the top there.
And it is the case, it's so true, when the more I think I know something, the more I know that I know absolutely nothing. But I do know that what I've been told so far hasn't been true, and that you're getting to the truth of things.
There's a question at the back here.
When the painting is coming up for sale, I'm assuming that you're going to be selling it through Sotheby's, given the assistance that they've given you.
Are you a plant?
No. And also, will it be going in a specialist sale? And are they, attributing the painting to Leonardo?
Well, that's...
And will it be sold without reserve?
Well, it will be sold as a Leonardo for sure. I can't really tell you whether it will be Sotheby's or who it will be. I have an allegiance to Sotheby's because it was thanks to them they told me about the papal bull. And so as a matter of honour, I have an allegiance with them. I always said rather naively, sadly, that I would sell it only for a museum because I want her to be seen. She's been hidden away. I want people to go in, interact. I want them to see everything that I've investigated. And I really hope that will be the case. But it's a case now also of the foundation. So where do I cut off? Do I want more money to do more good for children? Or do I say, okay, no, but I'm still going for the fact that all being well, it will be sold to a museum and it will be on common site. I would hate her to be bought by an oligarch and hidden away and coveted. It would be very sad.
Okay, thank you. So the Da Vinci and French kings and other people believed in it, but how does it prove that their belief was truth?
Well, if you're going to die for your belief, it's a pretty strong indicator that...
So that indicates the strength of their belief, but that doesn't prove that was the truth.
Okay, but if you then put the composite, exactly the same as with all these different pieces of the puzzle, if they all still come to say the same picture, then you can take it that there's something gone wrong. Eisenhower said it's time for history to be rewritten in truth. So there's been something that's really gone off ball here. You've got to take I don't know, which is why I say in the book, question me. We must all question, that's the whole point. I'm convinced that what I've said, I wouldn't come and confront people or worry people or try and break down a system if I didn't believe that I had to do it. So so all I can do is put forward to you everything that I've found, which has gone over 2,000 years and loads of different experiences, and say, what do you think? I'm not saying, I'm just passionate about the Chaldees and the Druids and the fact that I, as a person on this island, was never told that. And that's also why the French, you'll see in the book, the French and the Scots have a tremendous alliance. So, but you're right, you can never be sure. What is truth? But all I do know is I've been given an awful lot of codswallop all my life, and so have people for 2,000 years, and people have been willing to die for it, as indeed I would.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. Up the platform.
Thank you very much. Going back to the Sotheby's question, what I'm lacking in this talk of yours is you were referring to evidence, infrared pictures had been made of the painting. You didn't show them in your PowerPoint, which I find a bit strange. It would have been perhaps possible to include that. I would also like to know something about the wood. I mean, you say this is a painting on wood. Of course, we cannot see that when we are looking at a digital image. Of course, the papal bull that you say is on the back of the painting is also very interesting. There are some letters there, for example. Have they been deciphered? Has anybody looked at the, you say this is vellum, that is possible. But you also say that you do not get much of a response from the secret archives in Rome. So
no,
could you explain to us who are the experts who actually looked at this?
It was Professor Barbara Frail at the secret archives in the Vatican that authenticated it as a papal bull from Pope Paul V. So that dendrology is ongoing. I'm not here. The reason why I wrote this book is the story of a censored history that's been passed through symbolism. Right the way through, I've even said, though I do know it's a Leonardo, if you took it as circumstantial evidence in a court of law, it would go through as, yes, it is. But I will, it's aside. The reason why I'm not giving you infrared and I'm not giving you dendrology and I'm not giving you X-ray is because this is the thing that's taking it on to auction. This is my private business at the moment. But every hoop I've jumped through, and it indeed has jumped through. So I've given you new evidence tonight, which is the mirror imaging, and the dendrology is ongoing right now. So I can only do what I can do.
When is the evidence going to become available?
Well, I don't... You'll hear about the evidence. I've got it's a matter of getting things set up so that the auction and all the timing. So I'm not going to do anything but keep my powder dry on that. But I'm standing here in front of you with the Caterina Peace Foundation putting in place, so you'll just have to wait.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time for questions, but I'd like to hand you over to Professor Stephen Decent, who is Vice Principal and Head of the College of Art, Science and Engineering, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
I hope that present's for me.
Absolutely.
Are you teasing me, bringing your daughter's present?
I know, yes, I'm teasing you. So thank you very much for giving a fascinating talk today, and thank you for the audience turning up to the University of Dundee to hear and to participate in this fascinating debate. It strikes me that universities are here to host debate and host stimulating challenge and to stimulate discussion. And I think this is a perfect example of the role of universities.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. It's a fascinating talk, a talk which covered, had a very personal aspect to it and covered both a great deal of time and geography, and at the heart of it, a beautiful photo, a beautiful picture. So thank you very much on behalf of the University of Dundee, and thank you very much for the audience for turning up today. So just to advertise our next talk within this before I finally thank you, because I want to end on thank you, but just to advertise that in this wonderful series of talks that we have Our next one is from Professor Baron Cohen on the 20th of April. But just to highlight that, but before I really want to finish on the note of thank you very much for a fascinating talk.
Thank you.
It's
It's been my
President of the
pleasure.
University of
Oh,
Dundee.
thank you. Thank you. That's very beautiful.